We are now joined by number 15 ranked UFC lightweight Gregor Gillespie. Gregor, thank you very much for joining us today.
How you doing?
Good, thanks. First question will come from Gabriel Gonzalez with Cageside Press. Your line is open.
Hey, Gregor, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Gregor, my first question, with everything that went on in 2020, being in Long Island, I mean, how did you handle the training situation throughout the year? Because between lockdowns and everything changing, I'm assuming it was quite an experience.
Yeah, Long Island was a tough place to be in, considering we're, 20 miles or less away from the New York City area. So it was tough. But the first, I would say, I guess 4 or 5 months of, once lockdown started. So from like March to, I guess, July-ish, I was upstate New York with my family, my girlfriend, all my friends up there. I was kind of sitting up there waiting for things to open back up in Long Island because, if I'm not going to be able to work, if I'm not going to be able to train, I wasn't really going to stay in Long Island. So I went upstate for extended period of time and doing, solo workouts in my brother's basement for a while and got old quick.
You already bring such a dangerous weapon with your wrestling and your grappling. With all of this time between fights, what kind of growth did you want to make sure you made in your game in these months where we haven't seen you?
I don't think we needed to reinvent the wheel. There's a few things we needed to tighten up with the kickboxing. And, we've done a lot. We stayed on the same training regimen and we did a lot of, striking work, which we've always done. We didn't need to reinvent the wheel. It was unfortunate what happened last fight. But as I said yesterday in a few interviews, I didn't get caught. I didn't get unlucky. It was just, a perfectly executed combo by Kevin Lee, and that was the result. So, again, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We just kept training hard the way we were always training.
I had just one question about, obviously the way the last one went down. We've heard several fighters discuss after they've ended up on the highlight reel, you kind of just got to own it and just to be able to move past it. For yourself, what was that process to yeah, I've seen that clip everywhere. It's behind me now, though.
I have a really funny story about that clip, actually. So, I was going upstate where my facial doctor was because I did break my jaw as a result of that kick with Kevin Lee. And I was going up, for my, 6th or 7th facial doctor visit to get clearance to go back to full-time training with contact. And I was upstate, and it happened to be the UFC Brasilia fight where Kevin Lee was fighting Charles Oliveira. And I was at a ski resort, which actually that day the ski resort got shut down for the whole year. And it was kind of the start of the whole lockdown thing. But I was at the bar, hanging out with my buddies between time up and down the mountain, and the bartender knew that I was a fighter, and she was kind of saying, "Hey everyone, this is a UFC fighter, blah blah blah." And that was on a Sunday, and they were replaying the fight from the night before, which was Kevin Lee versus Oliveira, and of course that was Kevin Lee's last fight. So right as she's telling everyone that I'm a fighter, the highlight of Kevin Lee knocking me out comes on TV, and oh man, they could have picked a better one, But yeah, I mean, that was obviously, unfortunately, I'm going to be a highlight reel for Kevin Lee forever. And, listen, if you fight long enough, things like that happen. So I don't think it took too long to get over that. It's something that happened. It's part of my fighting experience. And, we're going to do everything we can to not let that happen again.
Well, I certainly hope they were nice to you at that bar, Gregor. Awesome. My final question, how do you get this victory on Saturday against Brad?
Same game plan as always. So watch my first 6 fights. That's what I'm looking to do.
Hey, thank you and best of luck.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Damon Martin with MMAfighting.com. Your line is open.
Hey, Gregor, I know as a wrestler, you guys go through losses, you guys go through, tough times. And I know, part of the mentality of wrestling is, embracing the grind and coming back out there and getting back on the horse, so to speak. With the pandemic and the injury, was it tough this last year and a half, not being able to compete? Because I imagine that probably eats away at you a little bit.
Yeah. So like you mentioned before, this is not the first time I've experienced a loss. I had double-digit losses in my high school career, and I had double-digit losses in my college career. So this is not the first time I've had to come back from a loss. unfortunately, the difference, and people probably, you know, the people that are really involved in the sport do understand this, but for anyone that doesn't, the difference between losing in wrestling and then losing in fighting is the fact, and this could be a double-edged sword. You know, it's a blessing and a curse, but after you lose in wrestling, typically you're going to wrestle that same day or the following day, and you can kind of redeem yourself and feel okay or more okay about the loss relatively quickly. You know, if you lose in wrestling and then the next day or the next round you beat a good guy, you kind of are, it's a little damper on the loss from the previous round. In fighting, you're waiting months, years in this case, well, a year or so in this case, before you can even attempt to redeem yourself. So yeah, that's the tougher part about fighting is, you know, you're only as good as your last performance, and you kind of got to wait a while before you can redeem yourself in most instances in fighting.
Not to, you know, keep harping on the wrestling, but, you know, having talked to guys like Kyle Snyder, like after he lost the match, you know, it fired him up pretty hard. He wanted to come back out there and compete that much more. Because you come from wrestling, I imagine it's kind of the same thing, but kind of give me that mentality coming back from the loss and going into this fight. Like, do you get fired up? Do you have to kind of put that out of your mind a little bit? Like, how do you approach it?
Yeah, I mean, my college coach, Tim Flynn, told me this a long time ago. Whether you win or whether you lose, you have to have amnesia. And I remember those were his exact words. So if you come off of a really good win, you can't just sit there and celebrate and pat yourself on the back, because the next round you got another killer who's trying to take you out. And if you lose, and then you have to go back to the wrestlebacks and try to beat another good guy who's trying to get on the podium, you can't dwell on the loss that you just had either. So you have to have, you know, amnesia about your last round or last fight.
That almost a perfect segue into the next question, because you do see it. You know, some guys, some girls, when they experience a knockout, you know, they come back trigger shy. They come back, you know, gun shy to go out there and engage. And obviously, Brad Riddell is a striker. I don't think it's any giant secret what he's going to try to do in this fight. But you seem like a pretty mentally strong guy. Obviously, you've addressed the loss, you've addressed what happened. In terms of that, like in terms of this matchup, like, is this almost the perfect fight for you to go out there against a guy who you kind of know is going to try to knock you out?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fight. I think most guys at this point in my career, especially the ones that I've fought already, you know, they're going to try to stop my takedowns and try to hit me on our feet or kick me on our feet. It's no different than the last 7 fights I've had in the UFC. You know, no one really wants to do the grappling exchange with me. That's always been the case from, you know, the local promotions up through my fights in the UFC. So it's no different. You know, got to get to where I'm good, and that's not a secret either. So.
And last one for me, because you did have to go through so much to come back with, as you mentioned, the jaw injury and then the time off with the pandemic. I know it's tough to answer with the fight literally 2 days away, but if everything goes well on Saturday night, how busy would you like to be? Can I imagine you want to, you know, kind of get a busier schedule for the rest of this year?
Sure, but let's talk about that one after this weekend. I just focus on the next one. That's how I've always been. I don't want to start making predictions of what's going to happen after. I really, I got to focus on the fight in, you know, 2 days or so.
Thanks, Gregor.
You got it.
We'll go next to Pablo Santamaria with No T MMA Ecuador. Your line is open.
Hi, Gregor. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, the first thing I want to ask you is, it's been a long time since we saw you in action. So what did you learn from that fight from Kevin Lee?
I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? So, of course, everyone and their brother was telling me after that I should have wrestled sooner. I should have pushed the wrestling action. And it's very easy for everyone, including myself, to say, yeah, I should have wrestled sooner. But what if I had knocked him out? Because the striking, from, how I felt about it, I was winning the exchanges. It was close, but I felt like I was winning the exchanges on our feet. So what if I'd knocked him out? Then everyone would have been praising my striking and saying, we're glad you didn't wrestle, So it's hindsight's 2020. But what if I had pushed the wrestling too soon, where a shot wasn't there, dove in on a shot and got an uppercutted or kneed or whatever and got knocked out? Then everyone would have been telling me, why were you forcing the wrestling? Your striking was going so well, So it's very, very easy to look back and say, well, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that, after you know the outcome. So, what I've learned, I guess get to where you're good sooner if the opportunity is there. But, there's no need to force anything.
For sure. And what are your thoughts of Brad Riddell as an opponent?
Yeah, I've always been the kind of guy who stays away from talking about my opponents. He's obviously a good fighter. I know he's good. I know he's going to have a lot of effort. I know he's going to try really hard. He's not the kind of guy who's going to roll over. So, same game plan I've always had. I'm going to push the action. I'm going to make it a high volume fight. So.
Okay, so you're fighting in one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC, if not the most stacked. So what are you feeling of fighting at lightweight division? And if you get the victory, you would like to call someone out?
No, I'd like to go fishing after I finish my fight. And, I'd like to do a little mountain climbing after too. I've been, I would say the one thing that I did pick up as a hobby in the last however long I've been off was my girlfriend got me into climbing mountains. So there's another obsession that I got to juggle as well as my fishing. So I'm going to be busy this week after climbing mountains and fishing.
Okay, I think for me, a lot is talking social media. How do you handle the loss? Will you have an advice for all the defeated fighters that are putting excuses, like for example, Sean O'Malley, he's undefeated, or Paulo Costa, he drank too much wine, but you talk it like a champion.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for anyone but myself, but I didn't lose that fight against Kevin Lee because I had an off night, or I kept my hands too low, or he caught me, or he got lucky. No, none of that's true. So to say that stuff would just be, like you said, making excuses. But I can't speak for anyone but myself. But one thing I can say is that when I see people who, after a loss, can't even fathom the thought of giving credit to the other guy, that really irks me. These guys are good. You didn't have an off night, man. The other guy beat you. He was the better man that night. So, and the inability to express that or accept that rubs me the wrong way. So maybe I go a little too far the other way, but these guys are really good, and he executed a perfect game plan. So if I can't address that and say that was something that he did well, then how are you going to ever personally grow?
For sure. Okay, it's awesome to have you back in the octagon. Good luck on the fight.
Thank you.
And thanks for your time, Gregor.
I appreciate it.
And we'll take our final questions from Nikita with Sport Express. Your line is open.
Hey, Gregor, big pleasure to talk to you, my man.
How you doing?
Gregor, in 2009, you beat Michael Chandler in NCAA. I wonder, what memories do you have about this wrestling match, about Michael, and what catches your mind,
Oh, my God, that was a lifetime ago. Yeah, I wrestled Michael Chandler in the 2009 NCAA Division I tournament, and I believe it was the consolation semi-round, and I don't remember the exact score, but I think it was something like 12-2. But that score was, I don't want to say misleading, but I do remember thinking holy cow, man, most people, when they're losing by 8 or 9 points, they stop trying so hard. He had he just kept coming and kept pushing the pace. And, I was definitely the better guy at that point, and I, weathered that storm, and I put my points up on the board. But I remember thinking holy shit, dude, this guy just doesn't stop. But, that was a long time ago. I think we've both made improvements in our fighting and our grappling, or whatever you want to say, since then,
Gregor, since that time, were you surprised later that Michael Chandler went too far in MMA, that he achieved so much success in this sport?
No, I'm not surprised at all. He was a Division I All-American in college wrestling. It's if you learn how to use your hands into your takedowns, and he's actually predominantly a striker at this point. He gets, I think, more knockouts, finishes on his feet than he does any time on the ground. That part, I guess, would kind of surprise me, but I'm not surprised that he's winning. When people are combat athletes and they win, they usually continue to win. That's one thing about the best guys, and I've always said that I put myself in this category as well. Winners, no matter what, continue to win. And for example, like Ben Askren is not a boxer, but I'm certain Ben Askren's going to figure out a way to win in his fight against Jake Paul, or against Jake Paul, yeah. But like winners usually win, no matter what avenue they're heading down. So I'm not surprised Michael Chandler is winning either. No.
Gregor, I have several questions about the Kevin Lee fight. At that first round, before knockout, there was a moment when he threw head kick and he missed, but it was very close. In that moment, maybe you had feeling that, man, I should be more accurate with his kicks. How do you remember that?
I mean, I do remember, I believe it was a right kick that he missed. Obviously we had trained blocking kicks. Everyone when they're training for a fight, no matter who it's against, they train to block kicks and fire back, right? Counter punch, counter kick. But the one thing I guess that was a little more surprising is, from what I understood before that fight, he usually went southpaw before he threw that kick. This time he did it right off of a right hand. But I mean, again, props to Kevin Lee. Perfectly executed, perfectly timed. I mean, nothing lucky about that. It was as good as it gets.
Although this fight didn't play out good for you, but I admired a little bit your jab, because your jab in this fight worked very well. You have cut, yes, he has cut under his eye. Can you a little bit tell about your jab, because you're a fast guy and you have very strong jab, how it's this important weapon for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've always had a good jab. I should have kind of segued that and parlayed that into some follow-up punches. If I had to say the one thing that I wish I had done differently as far as my striking was concerned in that fight, one punch at a time doesn't usually get it done. So that's something we've worked on. Yeah, but my jab, yeah, I don't think it's a secret. I have a pretty decent jab.
Mm-hmm. Gregor, you, in terms of height, you're a little bit small for this division, even for 145 division. How you can deal with knees? Because we saw in Frank Edgar, Corey Sanhagen fight this terrifying knee. How can you deal with that knee threats?
Well, I really don't even know how to answer that. I mean, I'm as tall as I am, right? I don't have like a horrible time getting down to 155, but I am, cutting some weight to get there. I will say this for everyone that, gives me shit about why don't you go down to 145. I mean, that'd be a pretty tough cut for me. I'm not sure that I would, be interested in doing that at this point. And usually when people decide to go down, it's because they're losing, and maybe it's because of the size. The reason I lost my last fight wasn't because I was the smaller man. I got kicked in the head. It was a perfectly executed shin across my face. That had nothing to do with me being small for the weight class. And I don't know exactly what the other guys weigh on fight night, but I can't imagine that they weigh much more than I do on fight night. So I don't think that I'm undersized for the weight class, and I'm certainly not the reason that I lost my last fight. So I always try to steer clear of the whole topic of why aren't I down a weight class. So, I mean, I ended my college career at 157. I'm, now 2 pounds lighter than that, in a weight class 2 pounds lighter than that. And, this is where I'm staying.
Gregor, you have 23 takedowns in UFC already. It's very cool. Can you recollect the most memorable takedown in UFC? Maybe the most beautiful, you're most proud of?
Oh, man. I had several good takedowns against Gonzalez. I think it was my third fight in the UFC. Yes. It was at Pittsburgh. I had several good takedowns during that fight that I thought I ran my feet well. I didn't hesitate on the finish. I had clean entries off of punches. I thought those were probably some of my best takedowns right into finishing. I'd say I think probably 7 or 8 takedowns that fight, if I had to guess.
Gregor, my last question is about fishing. Have you ever felt bad after you caught fish and you unhooked it and returned to water? Has there ever been such moment?
Have I felt what?
You felt bad that you caught fish and you returned her to water, release, Has there ever been such moment?
Are you saying that I feel bad?
Yes, maybe a little bad that you caught.
No, I mean, I never keep the fish that I catch, unless someone specifically asks me, hey, if you're going salmon fishing today, could you bring me back one? And otherwise, I never bring fish home with me. I catch, release, and they're 99% of the time they're released alive. So that's something that, I'm pretty proud of. I don't, kill the fish or leave them on the beach or whatever, We're very, very responsible with our fishing.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Gregor, thank you very much. Best luck on the top.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gregor. You're all set.
Cool. Thank you.